Hello, my name is Marta Wnuczko. Welcome to the talk titled Tactile Picture Theory, Scribbles, Regions, Shapes, Directions. This talk is co-authored by me, Dr. John M. Kennedy, who is a professor at the University of Toronto, Scarborough in the Department of Psychology, and Selene Carboni, who is an art historian joining us from Bergamo, Italy. She is also a member of Dr. Kennedy's lab at the University of Toronto, Canada, where we conduct research on picture perception by people who are visually impaired. My background is experimental psychology, and I currently teach and conduct research at various institutions that includes the University of Prince Edward Island, the University of Guelph, and OCAD University. This presentation is divided into three main sections. In the first section, we ask the question, do people with visual impairments develop raised line drawing as sighted do? We argue yes, because the information that is necessary for picture perception is available to us with or without vision. And here, picture perception includes drawing, and it can include drawing in perspective. In the second part of the presentation, we dive deeper into what is information for vision and touch and what is informative in the environment. So here we talk about edges and surfaces and also directions and perspective. And finally, we introduce stages of drawing development, arguing that the sighted and the blind go through similar stages. With practice and over time, we may start with scribbles, then we draw regions, then shapes, and then directions. So we introduce this presentation with this question, do people with visual impairments develop raised line drawings as sighted do? Interestingly, the claim that people who are blind develop or can develop drawing via unguided practice like the sighted is still controversial. But this controversy could have its roots in either the lack of understanding or insufficient understanding of what information is available to us without vision and with vision in comparison to what is available to us with vision. And also, how do perspective pictures work? What is the relationship between pictures and directions? This is something that we don't necessarily understand, whether sighted or blind. So first we start with the observation that edges, shapes, and directions are available to vision as well as touch. And also lines in pictures can stand for edges. Whether you're sighted or blind, you will use lines like this in drawing. And you can also use lines to show shapes of objects. For example, here below, I show you a raised line drawing by M, who is a 30-year-old woman. Right now, she has just light perception, so she can tell whether lights are on or off. And she had low vision before the age of 20, so she could tell large print. She has some drawing experience. And below in the slide, you can see her raised line drawing of a landscape depicting mountains or hills, a setting or rising sun, trees, and a house. And now, the way this was done, she used a polyester film atop of a rubber board. If you press and drag a pen against that polyester film on a rubber board, you will generate raised lines. And these lines are not just visible, but they're also tangible. So lines represent edges, and they can also be used to show shapes of objects. So M used, for example, this kind of semicircle to show the hill. And also you can copy directions, right? So we all understand that a tree is to the left of the hill, that the house is to the right of the hill. And you can copy these directions in pictures. Further, you can show occlusion. So M showed occlusion, occluding surfaces. And as you show occlusion, certain features emerge. One of those features is the so-called T-junction. It's called T-junction because it can resemble a letter T. It consists of two lines that are perpendicular to each other, and one of the lines can touch the other somewhere like in the midpoint. So M used a number of T-junctions here. You can see one here to show the two hills, one in the foreground and one in the background. So one of the lines, one of the two lines of the T-junction shows the fragment of the hill in the foreground, and the other one shows the fragment of the hill in the background. And it stops where it touches the edge of the line representing this foreground hill. So this means that the background hill is being occluded by the foreground hill. Now, Selene Carboni also notes, just a side note, so T-junctions can also occur in reliefs. Reliefs are obviously wonderful for exploring objects using touch. Here is a bas-relief Steli Tadini by Antonio Canova, and it depicts a person who is mourning, who is weeping, sitting on a stool in front of an urn, and an urn is resting atop of a column. And the column seems to be in the background. You can see that lower relief is used for the column. And also there are T-junctions that suggest occlusion. So you have one T-junction near the base of the column. So you see there's a T-junction formed by the top edge of the base of the column and a part of the leg of this person in front of the column. And so this indicates that the column is occluded by the leg of this person. In reliefs, you can also use other devices. You can actually use gaps between the depicted forms. So here, the same, if you take a look at this bas-relief Steli Tadini from a side, you look at the stool from the side, you may notice that there's actually, this relief depicts both legs both legs in the rear. One is in high relief. That's let's say this is the leg in the foreground, and there's also a leg that is represented with a bas relief. That's a leg in the background. And there's also a little gap between them, a recess so you could actually put your fingers behind that leg in the foreground, and this gap is going to indicate that there's a distance between the two legs, between the two planes in which the legs are shown. You can use gaps. You can also use gaps in other ways. So in the right part of the slide, you see bas relief with a recess. This is the relief of Pisanello's Lionello d'Este, which Selene Carboni wrote about. And here the T-junction is actually formed through by the finger behind the forehead of the profile. So this is the T-junction that indicates that the fingers are behind the profile of the head. Now, in drawings, a single junction can be informative. It could, for example, suggest that there is an occlusion, but what may be even more meaningful is a combination of junctions. So here, the junctions indicate the different corners of the cube's face. You see, there's a picture of a cube drawn by this same person we call M, this blind woman with some light vision, and you can. She depicted the three faces of the cube: the side face, the top face, and the front face, the top face, and the side face. And she also used a number of junctions to show corners of the cube. She used L junctions to show corners of the top face of the cube, the front face of the cube, and the side face of the cube. She used a fork or Y junction, which consists of three lines, to show a cubic corner with three faces shown: the front, the top, and the side. And she used arrow junctions that consist of 3 lines, and they kind of resemble arrows. She used them to show cubic corners with 2 faces shown. Interestingly, she also used the so-called inverted T at the base of the cube. Here, the inverted T shows a cubic corner with the front and the side faces shown. If M had used perspective correctly, then this would have been just another arrow junction. So you could say that the inverted T is kind of like a special case of an arrow junction. This combination of junctions will be seen in pictures of cubes. So we talked about lines and junctions. Next, let's consider directions and perspective. And here you see 2 pictures that were taken of a demo that I did, which was similar to the study we published in 2014 with Dr. John M. Kennedy. You can see in this picture a person pointing to circles which are arranged along 2 paths extending into the distance. These circles have protruding centers that you can touch. And in this task, participants who are sighted blindfolded or blind would point to these objects that were previously seen or touched. And what we found was that the pointing was very similar in both groups. Participants were quite accurate, in fact, revealing the use of linear perspective. Linear perspective is all about directions and angles. Here in the right corner, I show you a diagram of a person pointing with both arms to objects on the left and the right. The angle between the arms is called azimuth, and azimuths will decrease with distance at a linear rate. You could also consider angles of elevation where you point up and down, and the angles subtended by intervals, but by same distance intervals between successive circles on a path extending into depth. These elevation angles will also decrease with distance, but they will decrease at a more quadratic and faster rate than azimuths. That's perspective. And if you understand the rates of change of angles, you understand perspective. And we use perspective automatically in pointing to objects that we previously explored. So we have access to this information. Now, perspective pictures are a little bit more complex because it's not just about directions, but also the projection surface. So here, to better understand the relationship between a projection surface and directions, consider the perspective apparatus by Albrecht Dürer. Here you have a picture. An artist draws a lute by Albrecht Dürer, 1525, and you see here strings attached to the wall, extending to an object, passing through a screen that is perpendicular to the surface supporting the object, a table, and the points of intersection where the strings intersect the screen. Those are the points you want to take a note of. If you have many strings and many points, you'll be able to produce this perspective picture of a lute, of an object. Or, alternatively, you could just connect the dots, the points of intersection with lines, and you get this perspective picture. So I built a similar perspective model, a perspective apparatus in 2019, emphasizing convergence. So I used a special screen with a triangular cutout and also foreshortened shapes to show the relationship between perspective and perspective pictures. And I used this apparatus to test a hypothesis that it would facilitate non-visual recognition of pictures. The case study involved a totally blind, early blind man who let's refer to as S. S reported that the apparatus actually helped him understand perspective pictures. And he also showed this in tasks involving recognition and drawing. So one of the first things that he said when he explored this, and this came out spontaneously, he said, so that's how you get convergence. Someone in the past told him that converging lines in pictures stand for parallel lines or edges in 3D. And he used this as a convention, but he did not understand that, this is not a convention, this is geometry. This is, there's a specific relationship between, perspective pictures and directions. Once you get the geometry, this is no longer a convention. So so he had this sudden insight, and so this suggests that perhaps we can facilitate recognition of perspective pictures. Of course, that's not quite what drawing is, but the information for drawing and recognition is basically the same. And whether we are sighted or blind, we will not start drawing in perspective. This is like the last stage of drawing development. We start with scribbles. So we hypothesize that we, whether sighted or blind, start with scribbles. This is the earliest rule in drawing. Scribbles stand for an object because the person drawing says so. Then we have regions. This is the next possible stage in drawing development. Then we have shapes. After drawing regions, novices draw the shapes of parts of objects, such as rectangles, and use junctions in pictures to indicate vertices of three-dimensional objects. Finally, we get to the stage of directions. After drawing shapes, novices consider directions of parts of objects. For example, for a road going into the distance, lines will be oblique, converging up the picture surface. So here are our case studies of Albe and M. And I already described M for you. Albe is a 49-year-old man, early totally blind, beginner at drawing. Below you see his a snapshot of his, or a minimized picture of his drawing of a face. Here it is magnified. So Albe drew a face. First, he drew a large circle for a head. Then he drew a straight line for the nose. And then he drew small circles for the eyes on the line of the large circle. Why? Why did Albe draw small circles on the line of the large circle? Albe was showing that eyes are on the surface of the face. That's our suggestion. He did this to indicate that the eyes were not inside the face, like the tongue, and not outside of the face, like the headrest. They are on the surface of the face. They're embedded inside the face, inside the head. Why did Albe use so many circles to stand for eyes? He used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Later, after some nudging, he put circles inside the face. So most likely Albe practiced how to draw the shapes of the eyes while also drawing to understand where to position them in the drawing. Now, let's go back to this main question. Why did Albe draw small circles on the line of the large circle? And this is actually in line with Willett's three regions theory. So here on the left, I show you a picture of a circle with 1 inside the circle, 2 on the border of the circle, 3 outside of the circle. A picture has 3 regions. 1 may mean inside the 3D object, like your teeth in your head, or like your tongue in your head. 2 may mean the surface of the 3D object, like the eyes embedded in the head. 3 may mean outside the 3D object, like the backrest of your chair. So, why did Albe draw small circles on the line of the large circle? We suggest he was showing the eyes are on the surface of the face. That's the prediction that follows from Willett's theory. Now, let's assume that this is what happened. He's at the region's stage of development, we would argue. So if that's the case, how would he draw a soccer ball? If the line stands for the surface of the object, then where should the panels of a soccer ball be drawn? Here I just show you a picture of a soccer ball with these hexagonal panels. And the prediction is that if Albe is in the stage of regions, he will draw these small circles on the line. And that's exactly what he did. That's the picture of the ball with small panels, with small circles drawn on the line of the large circle. Next, let's consider M. So just as a reminder, she's 38 years old. She has had low vision before 20. She could detect large print. From 20 years old, she just has light perception, so she can tell whether lights are on or off. And she also has some drawing experience. And so she drew this cube in perspective. The top of the cube is drawn with oblique lines. They show surface goes into depth. She used foreshortening. Notice that this quadrilateral depicting the side face is actually a lot slimmer than the front face. That's foreshortening. She used arrow junctions, Y, L, arrow junctions to show corners of a cube. And her use of junctions shows a good understanding of perspective. Sighted and blind develop drawing similarly. Why? 3D objects and scenes consist of surfaces that are tangible and offer vantage points and therefore directions. The use of outline in pictures is not taught. The use of lines, junctions, and perspective in pictures is part of vision as well as touch. Therefore, the drawing development for people with and without vision can occur in similar stages. For example, first we start with scribbles, then we start to draw regions, then shapes, then directions. Or another way we could describe this is we start with scribbles that stand for objects because the person says so. And then we copy, not copying, but copying the shape. We copy the shape of a surface, such as the front face of a cube. And then we may copy the shapes of more surfaces, and then we draw in perspective to show how directions of surfaces project onto a two-dimensional picture plane. Here are the references. And thank you for listening. We also thank M and Alba for granting us permission to show their tactile drawings. We commend Bergamo for hosting a class on drawing for people who are blind. Here's our contact information. You can contact me using my Gmail if you wish. So it's m.wnuczko@gmail.com. Dr. John M. Kennedy, kennedy@utsc.utoronto.ca, and Selene Carboni, Carboni Selene written together @gmail.com. And so again, thank you very much. And we are excited to see you, and we look forward to your questions and feedback.